Hey guys, it's Bree and welcome back to another video. So for today's video, I'm actually going to be doing a manga review, and it is a review of The Limit by Keiko Suenobu. I don't know if I pronounced that right again. The Limit is a series where it's kind of like shoujo meets survival horror, where like the art style is very shoujo, like has those like doki doki heart moments and like sparkles, but then the actual scenario that the characters are going through is very survival horror-esque. The back of the book actually describes this series as a combination of Heathers and Lord of the Flies, which I can kind of see because The Limit is kind of about how cliques influence the social hierarchies of young girls and can ultimately lead to different issues, I guess. It's also very Lord of the Flies because these characters are thrown into a similar stranded scenario where they have to survive and deal with just trying to live until rescue arrives, as well as they have existing conflict between the different characters in the group. If I'm actually going to talk about spoilers in this video, I'll put a timestamp somewhere on the screen so that you know what part you can stop watching this video at. But otherwise, let's just talk about the volumes first. So this was published by Vertical Ink back in the 2010s, and I actually discovered this series at my local library because I saw a volume on the shelf and I was like, oh, this looks really interesting. So I picked it up, I read it, I was obsessed. I ordered every other copy that the library had. Luckily, they had the entire series, which doesn't always happen. And then I read all of it, fell in love. I'm like, one day I will own this. But at that point, it was already very hard to find in bookstores. I was really fortunate to be able to pick up this series when I went to a convention a few years back, where someone was selling the entire set of 6 books all together for $50, which in Canada, if you can get any manga for less than $10, that is an insanely good deal. You'll notice that the volumes are actually very thin. I guess I kind of do know why they did this, because every single volume ends on this like humongous cliffhanger, and it drove me crazy when I was ordering volumes from the library. But when I own all of the books and I recently marathoned this entire series, I just picked up immediately the next book just to know what happens and refreshed my memory. So as for the actual plot of the book, it follows the main character Mizuki Kono, and she is a girl who has a group of friends at school that she really fits in with, or she tries to fit in with, and she is at kind of the top of the social chain. Her friends and her are basically the mean girls of their high school. They actually are seen early in the volume bullying another girl who is going on the trip, and this kind of establishes our character Mizuki as a follower of the more, I guess, predominant females in the group. Just something interesting to note about this story, they like to really delve into the backstories of the different characters before the main incident of the series. Because the main incident of the series actually happens in the first volume, I'm going to talk about it, where in Japan they often have school trips for like class bonding, where you all go somewhere. Sometimes it's camping, sometimes it's actually more like a vacation almost, and you go do activities with your classmates, and usually it's somewhere else in Japan. In this case, the students of Mizuki's class are going on a camping trip, and they were actually picked to go last on this camping trip out of their school, which was really unlucky on their part. No one likes to go last just because it's so hot and like all of the campgrounds and everything is all used and a lot of the materials there are used up, but they also have to do a lot of the after school stay cleaning as the last group, which kind of sucks, and a lot of the characters are pretty mad about that. So we're starting off this trip with like a lot of people not really having high hopes for having fun on the trip, and as the group is leaving, we actually find out that the bus driver who is driving the bus has been severely overworked, and he is working on extreme exhaustion, which causes him to, when he is driving, crash the bus off a cliff, and the entire bus falls off, and then most of the people on the trip die in the crash, and that is the start to this series, is our main character Mizuki waking up in a bus full of corpses, which is crazy because like even if you look up this art style, it's just like the classic shoujo art style, and then it's being contrasted with this bloody reality of this incident. Like after the bus crashes, she wakes up, she's alone, it's dark, she has to get out. She finds out that a few other girls have also survived the crash. Unfortunately for her, it's some of the people that she really didn't get along with in high school. So this series really delves into each character's feelings towards each other, as well as grudges that they hold against each other. We have the girl who was being bullied in the class, and she was being bullied by the main character too. So she really doesn't like Mizuki at the beginning. We have another girl who was kind of a lone wolf of the class. She didn't like to associate in anything because she thought that her family was more important than having her own high school life. And so Mizuki actually has a really hard time getting along with her. We have one of Mizuki's friends survive, but she kind of always had a grudge against Mizuki too. Overall, a very interesting group of characters. There's also this one girl who survived the crash but broke her leg, and she kind of develops this complex about the fact that she's injured and she's holding everyone back, because while everyone else is trying to do all of these survival things to make sure that they get rescued, she can't really do much with a broken leg. And this kind of instills this feeling of uselessness into her, and it's really interesting how that develops in the series. Now, this series actually takes like a really wild turn that you wouldn't expect, because when I was reading this and I'm like, oh, it's like a survival story, like they just have to like live until they can get rescued and they have to learn to work together. That wasn't really like the main course of action for this. Like they had to learn to work together and like survive together and also like overcome that social hierarchy that they had back in school. But also the series just throws in a murder mystery. One of the girls is discovered dead by the group using a weapon that they had brought with them on the trip. Their school advisor had brought like this hand scythe. And it's really important in the series because it's very useful for survival, but also a really dangerous weapon. And one of the girls was murdered by it, and then it becomes this huge murder mystery of like who actually killed her, because now they're not only surviving, but they're living amongst a murderer in the woods. And it is just crazy. I don't really want to say that much more about the plot because from here it's just all spoilers, and I don't want to say anything about the ending other than it was honestly really phenomenal. I thought it was really interesting seeing that the characters didn't really meet an end that you were expecting for them. Overall, I really fell in love with this series. I highly recommend that if you can get your hands on it, and even if you can get your hands on it at a discounted price, I do recommend picking it up. Just a short note about libraries. I don't know if libraries in other countries actually carry manga like my local city's library does. Like, my library basically carries every manga that's currently in print. It even carries mature manga, and it has it clearly marked, which is wild to me because you can just go to the library and get yaoi apparently. They also carry a lot of stuff that's hard to get or out of print because they collected it back when it was in print, like quite a few years ago. I'm just wondering if libraries in other countries are different from this, if your library carries manga. I was really fortunate to grow up in a city where my library carried manga, my junior high library carried manga, even my high school library had manga in it. So reading manga for free was never really a humongous issue for me. Yeah, that's basically the video. I guess I should probably rate this book. I don't really have a rating scale figured out, but I think that the strong points of this book is how unique the plotline is, especially with the art style. The art is really good. Like, I thought that it was so dynamic and interesting, but the art style and the contrast between that and the plot was just insane. This series really transcends its genre too, so like I feel like anyone could enjoy this story, especially if you like themes of battle royale, Lord of the Flies, or even just like high school girls being catty. it's fun. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this review and that you check out The Limit when you can. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!